Hi, I'm Zazzles. Thank you for joining me. Today I want to talk all about my trip to Japan and in particular all of the cool stuff that I brought back with me. This is Monty, who will probably be joining us from down the side of my chair for the whole video because he is very needy, very cute. But if my hand's doing anything strange, it's because, as you can see, there's a very needy border collie there. So I went to Japan a little while ago now. My friend was going to a conference there and I was very jealous, and she asked if I wanted to go with her, which I hadn't considered because it's a lot of money, but spare of the moment I decided, yeah, why not? Why not spend half my life savings to do this trip that just sounded awesome, and being able to latch onto a friend's trip instead of doing like a solo trip at a different time was really exciting and enticing. So I agreed about 3 months in advance of when we were actually going. So the first part of my trip to Japan was in Chiba, which is just sort of south of Tokyo. So I arrived at Narita Airport and was very proud of myself. I managed to find the right counter and buy a bus ticket to take me to Chiba. And day one, hour one-ish, I arrived at my hotel, dropped off my stuff, and then wanted to go for a bit of an explore. I went straight to the outlet centre that was right next to my hotel. So this is the Mitsui Outlet Park in Makuharu, and that was a dangerous first thing to do. I immediately found a store called Seria, which is a 100 yen store. I was in trouble because I wanted to just buy everything in the store, and it was literally the first thing I'd done on my trip to Japan. So I did buy quite a lot of stuff. I could have easily bought twice as much. It had a lot of sort of household stuff, a lot of kitchen and homeware and toiletries and things like that. But it also had a really big craft section. So I got a lot of crafty things, and they also had like fabric. So one of the things I got was this cute little pack of fabric, and this actually is 3 cat's squares that you're supposed to cut along the edge of each cat, and then it turns into wrapping fabric to wrap up presents. And when you wrap it up, it's supposed to look like a cat's face. 100 yen for the 3 of those. It was super cheap. I also got this, I think it's like a tea towel or something, but I just really liked it. It has a swallow print on it. And then in the crafty section, I got some precision tweezers because at the time my husband was working on some really fiddly little crafts, and I just spotted them and thought, yes, he needs those. And I can only find one of them, but I got a pack of about 10 of these little clips that you use to hold the edges of fabric together when you're sewing instead of using pins. So I thought they were super useful. I think I restricted myself to 1 packet of stickers. They had so many stickers, but I'm a big otter fan, and these otter stickers are like bubbly. They've got like a texture to them, and it's just otters in all sorts of really cute poses and little Japanese text next to them that unfortunately I can't read. I am learning Japanese, but I can't read them just yet, but absolutely adorable. This cute little cats that look like balls. They're like really round cats with some food dishes, so some coffee and some sushi and sandwiches and things. Just a cute little pouch. And in this same design, I got like a plastic placemat that I use for my cat's dinner. So I'm not going to show that to you because it's pretty disgusting right now, covered in cat food, but I do really like that design. I got some more fabric, so they had these small pre-cut bits of fabric. So that one's got like sushi, but then also like budgies that are really round and look like the sushi. This really nice teal one with cats on, and a little sort of turquoise one with pandas. In the paper craft section, I got some washi tape with little wildflowers in vases, just really delicate little flowers. And I got a bunch of these little paper packs, and I can't remember what these are called, but they're basically like miscellaneous papers, often looking like vintage, that you use when you're scrapbooking. So you can use them in like the backgrounds of your scrapbooking pages to just add a bit of texture. So I got one with just various bits of sort of old receipts and tickets and things. One with the butterflies on and one with like plants on. And finally from that shop, on my way out, I spotted a little ceramic section. So it was like plates and things. But I spotted this tiny little Shiba dish that I just could not resist. It was just too cute. So this now sits just behind me actually on the shelf, and I keep my earrings in it and I love it so much. It brings me so much joy. That was shop number one, hour number one. Already I've bought loads of stuff, so I'm in a bit of trouble for the rest of my trip, trying not to overload my suitcase. And at the end of day one, my friend came back from the conference and she brought me a tiny little dog. Not very Japanese, but apparently they were just handing them out at the conference, so she got me one. So that's another little keepsake. And spoilers, it's not the only tiny little rubber bird that I got on the trip. So day two was another conference day for my friend, so I was exploring by myself and I took the metro into central Tokyo, and the first place I wanted to check out was in central Tokyo Station. And I'd heard that underground there was this place called Character Street, which is like a full shopping high street under the station with shops dedicated to all the different sort of famous characters. This is a map of Tokyo Station, and I just want to tell you now that it is the most confusing place you've ever seen. I don't think I could even use this map because I couldn't figure out where it was in relation to where I was. It's enormous, and I just had to follow the colours. They have really good signage in the metro lines. They have really good colour system for which line you want to find, and the signs were in English a lot of the time, so it wasn't hard to find my way, but it was impossible to follow a map. And there weren't many signs to Character Street. So I did take a long time to kind of wander around and try and find it. And eventually I did find it. And there were a lot of characters I didn't recognise, like Sanrio characters, so like Hello Kitty, but other characters that we don't generally see more in the West. And this cat character called Mufusand, which is a little cat that they dress up in loads of different costumes. So I particularly liked this shark costume, and I got this little plush cat wearing a shark costume, which was a cat toy that you pull the string and then it vibrates to entertain the cat. And in that same shop I did my first gachapon machine, which is like the capsule machines that you put usually a multiple of 100 yen, so most of them were sort of 200, 300 yen, some of them were 500 yen. And in this one I got this adorable little badge with that cat shark character. It also came with a little sticker with the same cat character, but this time being eaten by a shark instead of wearing the costume. So maybe that's the sort of lore of how it ended up wearing the shark. So really happy I got those. I got this really cute little cat and otter embroidery patch. Again, otters are my favourite animals, so I was really excited to see some otter merch in Japan. So that was sort of the first shop I went to in Character Street under Tokyo Station. I went to the Ghibli store, the Studio Ghibli store, and they had so many beautiful things there. Again, I could have bought so many, but a lot of it was quite big figures or delicate figures, and I knew that I wanted to sort of look for more Ghibli stuff later in my trip. And that's when I discovered these collections of blind bags for embroidered pin badges. So there were a few of these that I saw through my trip. This was a Studio Ghibli one. They have sort of embroidered designs for 9 different Studio Ghibli films. And then the one that I got is a Porco Rosso one. So this is my lovely embroidered badge. If they'd have been a little bit cheaper, I would have got a few more to see if I got any of my favourite films. I would have really liked the GG one from Kiki's Delivery Service, or the Cat Bus, or yeah, there's a couple of the other designs that I would have preferred if I'd have wanted to spend more money on trying to get more. But knowing my luck, I would have got the same design again. Next, I went on the metro to Harajuku, which has a very famous street called Takeshita Street. And this is known as sort of the home place of kawaii culture. So everything is very cute and pink and frilly, and I really enjoyed having a walk down there. I got this rainbow cheese dog thing that I got because it looked insane. It was like a grilled cheese sausage shaped thing that just turned into this rainbow as you ate it. Just for the fun of it, because that's what you do. You get weird stuff when you're in the home of kawaii culture. So the first thing I did on Takeshita Street is I went to this gachapon shop, which just had so many gachapon. It was like thousands of different gachapon, and I knew I wanted to try and get some My Hero Academia stuff while I was in Japan, because I got really into My Hero Academia before I went, and unfortunately I didn't get one of my favourite characters. I got Endeavour, who's a fire hero, so yeah, I wasn't that bothered about that one. There's the flyer that has the different options I could have got. I didn't want to do too many gachapon because I knew I didn't want it to be wasteful. I knew a lot of these things I just wouldn't use, but when you're in Tokyo you kind of have to do gachapon because they're such a big, like, iconic part of Tokyo, and it's fun to see what you get. So after that I looked in some of the clothing stores. I'm not particularly girly in my fashion sense. I'm very much more baggy sweatshirts and black t-shirts and things. So I wasn't sure I'd find much that I liked, but they had some really cute sort of graphic designs and things. And I did end up getting a t-shirt for my husband that was super cute. He's got really into gardening since we bought a house. So I got him this really cute gardening, and on the back it says, "Let's gardening," which I like. And it's got this beautiful little pocket, which is embroidered threads. It reminded me of friendship bracelets I used to make when I was a kid, a teenager. And this cute little penguin with gardening tools. So I thought that was adorable. And it's a really thick fabric t-shirt as well. It doesn't feel cheap. Then I went a little bit out of the way from Takeshita Street to find a shop I'd heard about called B-Side Label, which is a sort of famous sticker brand. Again, I could have bought so much of this shop. I bought so many stickers as it was. I spent too much money on stickers, to be honest. It just was absolutely packed with thousands and thousands of designs. So this is their business card for their Harajuku shop. I bought a pin badge because I collect pin badges from every city that I visit. So as soon as I spotted one for Japan, I was like, okay, I'm going to grab this now in case I don't find one later. So I got this little Mount Fuji pin badge, which has a really nice illustrative style with Mount Fuji. And then I got so many stickers, so I'll just whiz through them as fast as I can. Some cat stickers. They had a photo cats, and then they have their own illustrations of cats. I got some anime characters. So from My Hero Academia, I got Lemillion and Tokuyami, which is my favourite character and my husband's favourite character. Another cat, realistic cat. The reason I've not used these were like great gifts to give to friends when I came back as little souvenirs, but these are the ones I haven't given to people yet, kind of because I was hoping I could keep them for myself, but I also haven't used them because I feel like I ought to give them to other people. But I think enough time has passed now I can start putting really cute cats on my laptop and things. And then I got this cute little rainbow toad with heart eyes. And then when I was checking out, they asked if it was my first time in Japan, and I said it was, and they gave me a free sticker with Mount Fuji on and cute little black and white cats, foxes, I think. So love that shop, and it is a brand that is sold in a lot of other shops as well. So later on I got some more from one of the big branded stores. But really, I'm glad that I bought that many stickers because they are adorable. It just is a really nice reminder, nice souvenir. I went from Harajuku to my last stop of the day on day 2, which was Nakano. And there is a place called Nakano Broadway, which is a big mall, but I'd call it an arcade, not like a games arcade, but like an arcade of shops. So it's undercover, it has this beautiful stained glass roof, and it's this huge mall, and there are so many levels that it's quite hard to find your way around. A lot of food near the entrance, but then the deeper you go and a couple of floors up, they have a lot of secondhand stores. So I had a lot of fun walking down the narrow corridors and into these tiny little secondhand shops, and people can hire like one shelf in the shop or one little box, so you end up with lots of different sellers, and you can see people's personalities or people's collections in these glass cabinets, and it's such a cool aesthetic, and you see some really cool old memorabilia from every generation. I was specifically looking for Cowboy Bebop figures, and I was specifically looking for Lemillion from My Hero Academia. I didn't want to buy loads of figures, I don't collect figures, but they were my like wish list if I'm going to be doing that. So I really enjoyed browsing and just seeing everything that they had to offer. And then I went into this big bookstore looking for Shonen Jump, which I did find. And this is Shonen Jump, which is a weekly book. It's huge, with all of the kind of week's worth of manga from a lot of the big well-known manga series. So it's really well known in Japan, and I was amazed how cheap this is. This was 290 yen, less than £1.80 for this book. It's because the pages are so thin, it's like an old-fashioned like phone book or something, the quality of the paper, and there's so much in it. I find it really hard, not reading Japanese, I find it really hard to know where one story ends and one story begins. They have these like full colour pages, so there's this really cool like front cover of My Hero Academia, but then what's on that cover isn't kind of what's next in the book. It's got like a different bit of My Hero Academia that's only like 5 pages long, and it looks like it might be colour coded, like the pages, some of the pages are pink, some of the pages are green, but I can't figure out where one thing begins and one thing ends. So yeah. But I bought it because it's kind of a part of Japanese culture and that weekly manga series, and I just was fascinated to see what it actually looks like. And I did actually see someone on the metro reading this. So yeah, very cool. So that was the end of day 2. And on day 3, I went on a quest for my husband. So I go traveling quite a lot by myself, and my husband sets me little like quests for things that he would like from each place that I visit. And this time in Japan, he asked me to find him Japanese craft supplies, specifically sort of art materials and wood, because he has got into wood carving. So I'd done some research and found a few potential shops. And on day 3, I went out, and my first stop was a shop called Hiba Kōbō, which is in a region of Tokyo called Fujimi. And it was very out of the way. It wasn't one of the touristy areas. There was barely anyone on the streets. It was a really tranquil walk. It was raining, so I had my umbrella up, and yeah, it was very chill. And I found this beautiful little wood store with displays out the front, everything handmade. And I did get a block of wood for my husband to try and carve, but I think he might do like a relief carving, so we could use it like a trivet for hot food or something like that. I also bought a little chopstick stand, which I can't find anywhere. It looked like a little bunny head. It had the 2 ears and the head that you rest your chopsticks on. And then she gave me a free little pouch of wood shavings that like smell really nice, so you're supposed to put it in like a drawer with clothes or something to make them smell nice. Yeah, really nice little independent shop, and I was hoping to find more shops like that, but there are actually not that many that I could find. I went to one a lot later on in my trip that we'll come to, which sold more handmade wooden items. But my next stop on the hunt for art supplies was a shop called Sekaido in Shinjuku, which is a much bigger area, very built up, and this shop was huge. It was like a department store but entirely dedicated to art, so it had 6-7 floors. I spent a long time in there because there was so much to see and everything was so interesting. This is what I bought him. So I got him some cold pressed watercolour paper. I got him a nice wooden paintbrush. And he'd specifically asked me to look out for refillable ink pens. And I was so happy that I actually found these and that I could interpret the packaging. And Google Lens was my best friend in this shop. If you haven't used Google Lens, you can basically just hold your camera over any writing and it will translate it live on the screen. And I got I think that's like a bullet-tipped refillable ink pen, and then a really fine liner. And then he'd also specifically asked me to get a traditional Japanese ink block. And I don't exactly know how this works, but I think you sort of scrape bits of the surface off, or you have a special dish that you kind of rub it on and then add water to it, and it turns it this block into usable ink. Finally, from this shop, I bought him a watercolour set. Again, I agonised over this for ages, but I picked this one because I really liked the palette, and this has a lot of like natural colours, so a lot of like forest colours, loads of different greens and browns and oranges, so you could do some really like autumnal designs. And then on the inside of the lid it has sort of the example colour variations. They look really high quality. They all had this really nice sort of traditional packaging that I really liked. So, successful mission on day 3, finding art supplies for my husband. And I wanted to go find some of the big brand stores. So I took the metro to Shibuya to go to a mall called Shibuya 109, I think. And I first of all found the Nintendo store, which I was quite excited about. Unfortunately, it was quite heavily focused on some of the brands or some of the franchises that I don't follow as much. So there was a ton of Animal Crossing stuff, and although I do like Animal Crossing, I've played quite a lot in the past, it's not something I'm like a super fan of. They also had a lot of Splatoon merchandise and a lot of Zelda merchandise, particularly like the newer Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. But I'm not a big fan of those modern Zelda games, so I was most interested in the shop in the Mario stuff. Again, I'm not a super fan of Mario. I did play a lot of Galaxy, I loved Odyssey. So the one thing that caught my eye, and I did only buy one thing in this shop. So that's my Nintendo Tokyo bag with a Splatoon character on the back. And that was this beautiful star, and it was by itself on a shelf, had no price or anything, so there was only one left, and I just grabbed it because I was like, this is exactly what I want. I think it's usually on the top shelf, so you probably don't see it in the background of some of my videos, but maybe it's peeked out. And it was a good size as well for my suitcase. It wasn't like a giant plush to try and take back home. There is one thing that I wish I'd got in that shop that I didn't get. So they had a lot of these little hand towels, and I didn't realise at the time. Later in my trip I realised a lot of public restrooms, particularly outside of the big touristy areas, don't have any way of drying your hands. So they don't have paper towels or they don't have hand dryers. So a lot of people have their own personal hand towels in their bags. So they sell them at a lot of these shops, and I saw them in kind of every design. So they had these really cute little hand towels with 2D Mario levels on them. I do wish I'd got one of those, not only because it would have been helpful later on in my trip, but I just would have liked that design and bring back and use as a flannel at home. But I'm really glad I picked this up because it's a really nice design. And then in the same mall there was the Shonan Jump shop, which had a lot of One Piece merchandise, and I've not got into One Piece, so that didn't really interest me, but it had some really cool big figures in the shop display. It had some cool signage for My Hero Academia, and that's where I found another one of these embroidered pin badge blind bags for My Hero Academia. And these are very strange because they're like My Hero Academia characters as animals. And the one I got was, again, probably one of my least favourite designs, but it's kind of grown on me over time. I got a razor head, kind of like an eye, I think. Yeah, very strange, but I really love the embroidered style of these badges. It's just a very strange design. I think I would have liked Uraraka little pink cat would have been really cute, or the Todoroki cat. And then the final shop that I bought something in from this mall was the Pokemon store, or they call them Pokemon centers in Tokyo. Most of the shops didn't have much that really enticed me. There was a lot of plushes, stationery and like hair accessories and things. But the one thing that I did buy is they didn't have any pin badges. I think that was my main thing. I always don't like a shop that doesn't have a pin badge. So instead they sold these earrings that they sold individually, so you could kind of pick and mix your favourite Pokemon. They only had maybe 8 different Pokemon designs. So I got a Mew, and then I also got a Pikachu. And then I've actually used these as pin badges, so I've just stuck them to my pin board as a little reminder. So that was day 3. And then day 4, my friend had some time off the conference, so we were able to explore a little bit together. And we went to Ueno, and it's known for its really big market. So we enjoyed exploring the market stalls and trying the food at the market, and they had a whiskey stall. I'd heard really good things about Japanese whiskey, so we tried, I think it was 3 different whiskies, and a guy walked past a local and just said, you have to try that one. So we tried the one that he recommended, and that did actually turn out to be our favourite. So can recommend just drinking Japanese whiskey at a market. They had a lot of sort of clothing market stalls, and I did buy something from one of those. I bought this coat, which says it's Oakley. Obviously it's a market, so I don't know if it's official. It looks really nice quality to me, and it's got all the Oakley branding and things. But I just really liked it as a coat, and I really like the design. It's a bit more colourful than my other coats and has nice big pockets. So yeah. And then we took the metro to Akihabara, which is known as Electric Town because it's got these giant electronic stores. It's full of skyscrapers that are arcades. So there's like 10-floor arcades, loads of anime figures and anime shops in general, and just a really vibrant place. And we went to one of the arcades in Akihabara and tried some of the claw games, and we also went up to the actual games part and played some of the games. Yeah, we did some of the claw games, and I didn't win anything, but my friend did win, and she very kindly gave me her win, which was this adorable Mew plush, which I really love. So I'm glad we won something on a claw game to bring home. Day 5 was a very exciting day because we went to Tokyo DisneySea, and I'm a big fan of Disney in general, but also of the Disney theme parks. Absolutely loved Tokyo DisneySea, had an amazing day. The first thing I got from DisneySea, not very exciting, but I picked up this little pot because I got the mochi, and I'd researched this beforehand and specifically went hunting for it as soon as I got in the park because I'd heard about this Toy Story alien mochi, and it was so good, so worth hunting for. It was like Neapolitan flavours, so there was a chocolate one, a strawberry one, and a vanilla one. And then I kept the little pot as a keepsake, and I've been keeping my like gachapon and pin badges and things in it. And then I wanted to try and find some pins because I do a little bit of Disney pin trading, and I was so surprised that there really weren't that many pins in Tokyo DisneySea. Each shop in the different lands kind of had different merchandise, so you do kind of have to look in all the different shops to see what's available. So the first shop that I went in only had blind bags, so I did get one. And this was a Duffy and Friends blind bag. So Duffy is this little sort of teddy bear with his face looks like Mickey ears. And Duffy and Friends is this kind of collection of animals with the Mickey Mouse outline in their face. So I got a blind bag of that, and I got this little bunny rabbit. I don't know her name, I'm afraid, but she's quite cute. The next shop that I went in at DisneySea, they had some merchandise for the 40th anniversary of Tokyo Disney Resort. So I got this giant badge, and this was 2,100 yen. So that is just over £12. And if anyone knows how much pins cost in America and in the UK, that is really cheap for a badge this large. As you can see, it's like as big as my hand. So yeah, I wasn't worried about spending too much money on pins because the prices were so much cheaper than everywhere else. I think in the same shop I found another blind bag, which was the Adventure is Out There series, which has this kind of old-fashioned Indiana Jones style, treasure map style. And this was a set of hot air balloons with different characters on. And I was really happy because in this one you got 2, and they're not even that little. So I actually got 2 from the same series. I got Pinocchio and Jiminy Cricket, and I think they're really nice designs. So yeah, really happy with those. Quite late in the day, we went on the Sinbad ride it's a little bit like It's a Small World. You're on like a boat and it plays music and things. It goes through scenes of the Sinbad story. And in each scene, this little baby tiger wearing a turban just kind of pops up in different places. And I just fell in love with this little tiger. I'd never seen him before. So I got a little bit obsessed. It was one of those like instant obsessions. So when I spotted this pin badge of the tiger from the Sinbad ride, I knew I had to get it. And this was 1,100 yen, so this is just over £6. So again, really cheap for a very large Disney pin badge. But then I saw someone walking past and they had this plush clipped to their bag. And so I was like, that must exist somewhere in this park. There's only one shop I've not been to yet, so I'm going to run to that shop. And I found the little tiger plush, who's so cute. I love him so much. And he has 2 clips on his front legs, so you can clip him to your t-shirt, whatever you want. And yeah, I have no regrets. Even if it was just an instant crazy obsession, I still think he's adorable. And you may have seen him. He lives with my Disney lanyards there in the background. And he also has a little keyring, so if you wanted a giant keyring, you could use him in that way as well. So cute. And finally, on my way out of the DisneySea, I went into the final shop on the way out, the big shops, and I got a really cute t-shirt for my nephew, which had different coloured sleeves and a bunch of vehicles on the main body with Mickey Mouse and characters in, because my nephew's obsessed with cars and anything with wheels, and it was just this adorable little t-shirt. So we said about Duffy and Friends, and there's a sort of Asia exclusive one, I believe, called Lena Bell, and I got a mini one. So this is Lena Bell, who's a little fox, and I got one of these for me and my sister, and then I got the full-size one for my mum because I think she's adorable, and it's nice to have an exclusive one. Great day at Disney. The only other thing I'll mention is the popcorn at Disney. Oh my god, it was amazing. Japanese theme parks go crazy with popcorn. The different flavours, everyone was so good. Particularly at Disney, we tried about 5 different flavours. They have different carts around the different lands. And my favourite was berry cheesecake, and I think I got it 3 times during the day. I went back for a final box just before the fireworks started, and I ran to this store to get my last fill of berry cheesecake popcorn. Definitely recommend trying some popcorn in Japan. So the next day we took the Shinkansen to Kyoto, and we got Ekiben train station lunchboxes. They were awesome. In Kyoto, I had done some research beforehand and knew that there was a large fabric shop. I've been interested for a few years in the wrapping fabrics, furoshiki wrapping, and also there's a type of Japanese embroidery called sashiko, which is beautiful. I think it's really cool. So I, again, went a little bit crazy in the shop. There was this really lovely assistant, and she spotted an embroidered patch on my bag, the same bag I showed earlier, but I've got this up patch, and she really loved it, and she asked if I'd been to Disney and things like that. And she helped me find the right kind of fabric for the furoshiki wrapping. And we've picked this really nice purple, I think it's like violets, but it's got a very specific kind of crinkled texture, and it's really thin, which she said was perfect for wrapping fabrics. So I'm so precious about the things that I got in Japan. I've not cut it up yet. And I got a similar design red one for my mother-in-law because she also wanted to do some wrapping fabrics, but then she liked the design so much she wants to make a dress out of her fabric. And then for the sashiko, I found specific sashiko threads. So I kind of bought all the colours they had. I got a gold one, a silver one, a green one, and 2 white ones. And they specifically say sashiko on. And I think these were only a couple of £100 each. And I didn't buy this in Japan, but just as an example of what sashiko is. So it's very like geometric designs, usually in like grids or across like diagonal lines. You just do the same repeating pattern, and the items that they make with it often look like origami. So they'll have like a bag that looks like it's made from origami, and then it has this beautiful like repeating patterns on it. So my husband bought me this stencil before I even knew I was going to Japan, just because I was interested in sashiko. And then I bought 2 big bits of fabric. I've got 3 meters of each of these in this blue and yellow. The idea is to make like a big quilt that I can do some sashiko designs on. So again, trying to fit that in my suitcase was, I didn't want to think about, so I didn't. I just bought it and then dealt with it later. And then the last thing I bought in the fabric shop, because I couldn't resist, was this otter fabric. And it's just kind of a thin cotton, I think. I do scrapbooking, so there's an example of my scrapbooking in my wedding crafts video, but I make the scrapbooks myself, so I make the paper and make the scrapbook, and I'm going to use this fabric to make the cover of a scrapbook. That was Kyoto. I think that was the only thing I bought in Kyoto. We bought quite a lot of food. We went down the market and got like gyoza and mochi and lots of cool food, but in terms of items, souvenirs, I think it was just the fabric. The next day, so we're now on day 7, we took the train on to Osaka and we went to Universal Studios Japan, which I'd put on my itinerary because as soon as I found out the year or 2 before that they were opening the Super Nintendo World, I was like, oh, it's such a shame I'll never go because it's so far away. So as soon as I knew I was going to Japan, I was like, well, I was so disappointed when I found out they were making it in Japan and I'd never go, that now I have to go. So we made a specific trip to Osaka to go to Universal Studios, and we got the express pass ticket because that was the only guaranteed way to get entry into Nintendo World. It gave us timed entry to, I think, 5 different rides, so we could just skip the queue of 5 of the biggest rides, and it gave us guaranteed entry into Nintendo World, which I absolutely loved. It was one of those wow moments when you go through the tunnel and you come out in Nintendo World and it's like, it's so cool looking. And the Mario Kart ride was the coolest ride I've ever been on. I absolutely loved it. You have a helmet which kind of makes it augmented reality, so you're like driving the Mario Kart and then you see like the rainbow road in front of you, and then through the glasses you see like shells hitting you and you're firing them at the other cars, and it's so cool. And because we did the express pass, we got a different queue and there was no one in sight as we walked around this express line queue, and there were so many cool like props. There was a giant Bowser statue and all the trophies for the different Mario Kart things, and my friend got a lot of cool pictures of me because my eyes were just like boggling because I'm such a big Mario Kart fan. At Universal, I don't even know when I got this, but they gave us a first visit Sesame Street sticker for some reason. To try and encourage you to buy the photos, they put like a little ride photo on your receipt. So this was our ride photo from the Escape from Hogwarts Harry Potter ride from the Mario Kart shop. So this is the Universal Studios Super Nintendo World bag. And I ummed and ahed about buying this. The only pin badge I could see was this big collector's set. So this is a badge for each of the cups in Mario Kart. Really cool. And then the middle one is a specific Universal Studios badge. But this cost nearly 7,000 yen. So if I do the math, that's like over £40. So it wasn't cheap. But when you see how many badges there are, so there are 9 badges here. Per badge, it's actually quite cheap. It was just a big commitment to buy the whole set. And originally I convinced myself to get it thinking, hey, I've got loads of friends that I play Mario Kart with. Maybe I could share them and give out some of the badges to those friends, or we could have a tournament and then the winner would get the badges, but I can't bear to let any of them go at the moment. And one of my friends is way better than everyone else at Mario Kart, so if we did a tournament, he would just win all the badges. They also had some really cool popcorn flavours. They had a peach flavoured popcorn and a mushroom flavoured popcorn, and we had to try the mushroom one, and it was so bizarre. It was like condensed mushroom soup or like mushroom risotto flavour. I don't regret, but not as good as berry cheesecake from Tokyo DisneySea. They had these special popcorn buckets. Disney's quite famous for having these big plastic popcorn buckets that are like collector's items, and they also had them at Universal Studios. And the ones that were there when I was there, they had a Mario Kart one, so it was Mario in his cart as a popcorn bucket, and then they had like the Mario star, so they basically had this as a popcorn bucket, and it was so damn cute. And then the front panel lit up, so when it got dark in the evening, everyone started turning on their popcorn buckets and you just had this like lit up stars all around the park, and it was so beautiful. I really liked them, but I'm glad I didn't get it because I would not have used it. The actual compartment for the popcorn was so tiny. So that was Universal, and we went back into Osaka in the evening and had a wander around the streets and along the famous river with the lit up signs and the running man and things. And it was a really cool evening in Osaka. We nearly missed the last train back to our hotel in Kyoto. Day 8, we had some kind of final time in Kyoto. We went to the bamboo forests on the outskirts of Kyoto, and then we were just travelling back by the Shinkansen back to Tokyo. So I didn't buy anything on day 8. For the final stage of our trip, we were staying in Ikebukuro, which is on the west side. It's just a couple of stops away from Shinjuku. They have a really big mall called the Sunshine Mall, and they have a big Pokémon center there. So on day 9, we did some exploring of Ikebukuro, and I went to the Pokémon center. And my sister had asked me to get her something from the Pokémon center, so I found this blind box of really cute zen scenes with Pokemon doing really chill stuff like in the garden, just really relaxing. Because it was a blind box, I got her 2 so that she could have a couple of different options, but then obviously they both ended up being the same, so I actually got to keep one. And we got this really cute little chikorita with a trellis with roses on. That one usually lives on that shelf as well, so you might have seen it. And this is where I got more of the B-side label stickers. So they had quite a lot of the Pokemon in their style that was really cute. So I've got this little Clefairy, and then I also got an Eevee and a Snorlax for some friends. So I bought a lot of their stickers, as I said. My memory's really bad on where this shop was, but I think we were just walking along the street in Ikebukuro and we saw this anime collector memorabilia shop, and that's where I got this t-shirt. So this is a Cowboy Bebop t-shirt with the character Jet Black. I'd got really into Cowboy Bebop before I left, and I said I should look out for anything Cowboy Bebop and get it if I saw it, because it's quite an old show now, so there isn't actually that much around. So as soon as I saw this one, it was the only one. It's the only thing I'd seen of Cowboy Bebop in the whole trip. So I got it, and it's got the tagline, "See you, Space Cowboy," along the bottom, which is kind of the iconic tagline for the show. So I'm really happy I managed to find something Cowboy Bebop while I was in Japan. One more day on my trip, my last day, and I wanted to hunt out more of this kind of artisan handmade shops, because both me and my husband kind of have that interest in a bit more sustainability. It may not seem so in me buying a lot of this memorabilia from Japan, but I try and minimize it or try and make it more natural, or secondhand figures and things. But I do make exceptions because I am a bit of a maximalist, and objects to me store memories. I've mentioned a lot how I have a terrible memory, so having an item I can hold that reminds me of the time when I got that item and filling the space around me with those memories is quite important to me. And so yes, I try and get a lot of stuff secondhand. We also try and hunt out like independent shops and crafters and makers who are really talented. So on this final day, I went to find this place called 2K540 Akihabara Artisan, which isn't a very catchy name, but it's this sort of artist alley that is underneath the train tracks in Ueno. So it's quite hard to find. They do have a map. So at some place, I think it must have been in one of the train stations, I found this map, and it's got the artisan alley listed on the shop, so you can see in relation to, I think that's just the rest of Ueno, how to get to this artisan place. And I'm so glad I found this place. My friend was meeting a local from Tokyo to show her the sumo region of Tokyo and the earthquake museum, but I turned down that opportunity because I wanted to do some of this final shopping, and I don't regret that because I would have been so sad to miss out on this artisan alley. It was so cool, so many little indie shops that I'm really glad I found. Let's start with the cat shop. So there was this guy and he just had like a picture, a big printout of his cat on the background, and it looked so much like my cat that I told him, I was like, that's like my cat. And he asked all about my cat. He was so excited. And so in this shop I got this embroidered patch of a super cute cat. And then I got this adorable mug that has little cat feet, and then on the back it has a tail, and the top got ears, and it's just absolutely adorable. And I've never seen anything like this. And then I went to this wood shop, which I'm glad I found, because the first wood shop I found was more about selling the wood, whereas this shop had more things crafted from wood. So I got a gift for my dad that is a little sculpture of a bear, and it came really nicely displayed on a little base with a little sign with the Japanese characters handwritten on it. I also got this little charm. I hadn't got any other charms. They sold charms in a lot of places, a lot of temples, a lot of shrines. I got this one of a rooster from this shop because it's my zodiac. That was kind of the only reason, and I just liked it. And then I got this cool, so it doesn't look like much. It's got a little owl design in the bottom that's pretty cool. But this bit of wood is for massaging muscles, sore muscles, and you like rub it along a muscle and you can get like the knots out of your muscles, and it's actually so good. And you can use different parts of it, so there's like a thinner part and like, yeah, just the different notches. And honestly, we've used it quite a lot. It's really nice on sore muscles. In the same shop they kind of highlighted different artists. So on one side was all the wooden figures and items, and then by the cash register they had a metal working artist display, and they had a lot of copper items. I got this really cute little copper maple leaf that's just on a little clip, and I actually use this as a knitting marker. So I slide it onto my needle to mark the beginning of a row in my knitting. And I got a bigger one for my mum to use as a keyring. And the last shop that I bought something from in this Artisan alley had these really cute characters. They had a pair of characters. So they had a ghost and this kind of demon character. And I immediately fell in love with this ghost guy wearing a top hat. The displays had this character and the demon character in pairs, and they had all different designs. And so I did buy the pair, and then I gave my cousin the demon one because I thought he'd really enjoy it. And then I love my little ghost. I then went back to Ikebukuro and did some final shopping of things that I knew I'd wanted for a long time. Oh, before that, I mentioned I got another little rubber bird. At our hotel in Ikebukuro, they just had this on like our pillow. It was just this cute little bird. The hotel was called Ikebukuro Wing, I believe, so it had a bit of a bird theme. So I just had this nice little collection of that, my little ghost, and the rubber duck. And I found the whisky that was recommended when we'd done our tasting at the market. And it must be a really popular brand with tourists because they sold this a third bottle. So I bought 3 so I could give some to my whiskey loving relatives and one for myself. And I've got maybe a couple of shots left because I don't want to finish it. But definitely recommend. This is the Hakushu single malt Japanese whiskey if you want to try it yourself. And I then there's a series of shops that were everywhere. So they had them in Nakano, they had them in Akihabara, they also had them in Ikebukuro, and they're called mandarake. I think that's how you say it, mandarake. But the word looks so much like mandrake that in my head I just call it mandrake. And these are secondhand shops, often specialising in figures, or they have different specialties. So one of the shops I walked past was Gundam specialised, one of them was manga specialised. So I went to ones that had figures in. One of my friends is a big fan of Transformers and collects Transformers. So I really wanted to find him a cool Japanese Transformer for his collection. And I got him this sort of spider Transformer, which have really cool... I basically got it because it had really cool packaging with like really bold Japanese words on. And in the same shop, I went through... They have lots of like bins of like cheap stuff, and people often like sell their gachapon that they don't want or trade them, like get the ones they want. And so I went through kind of the gachapon and tried to find some of my favourite My Hero Academia characters. I couldn't find any figures of Lemillion, unfortunately, but my other favourite character is Mount Lady because she's a really tall lady and I can relate to that. And in the kind of bargain bins of this mandarake shop, I found this little stand of Mount Lady and this little keyring as well. So I was quite happy to add those to my collection. And when I met back up with my friend, she, as I said, had been to this sumo region, and she tried to go to this restaurant cafe where they serve the same stew that the sumo wrestlers eat every day, and they'd run out of the stew, but they were just changing over their signage of the sumo tournament. So they offered her one of the charts of the sumo tournament, and she also picked one up for me. So it's kind of this really, I can't remember which way up it is. I think it's the other way up. Yeah, it's this way up. So this would have been on display in the restaurant on the wall, and it lists all the matches for the sumo tournament. And I don't understand any of it, but it's a really cool looking souvenir of our trip. But yeah, that's rather special and not something that everyone gets. And then for our last evening, we went for conveyor belt sushi. I knew I wanted to try it in Japan, and it was amazing. We just went to one of the standard chains. It's called Kura Sushi, so it's probably not particularly like highly rated in terms of Japanese sushi, but I loved it, and I got so many plates. And when you finished a plate, you fed it back through a slot, and every 10 plates you got a little game on the iPad, and if you won, then it would give you a little gachapon would come down from a device at the top. And we did win one, and we got this little washi tape, but it's the anime Demon Slayer themed washi tape, which is kind of random. I've not watched Demon Slayer. That was our sushi gachapon prize. It's just a cool little gimmick. It was very cool. I absolutely loved it. I ate way too much sushi that day. The only other things I have to show you are some just more general things. I can't remember when I got them. I was treating this like a once in a lifetime trip. That's why I bought so much. That's why I was so determined to buy so many gifts for the people back home, because I was like, this costs so much money to travel that far, and it's a big trip. This could be the only time I ever go, so I've got to make the most of it and buy everything. But basically, as soon as I came home, I was like, this can't be the only time. I have to go back. I loved it so much. I want to go back as soon as possible, basically, as soon as I have the money. One of the things you can collect in Japan is stamps. So a lot of the train stations have their own rubber stamp, and you can get your own stamp collecting book, or some of them had these little sheets of paper. And so you can go and find as many different stamps of different stations as you can. So that's the only one we got, because I just sort of found it in passing and I didn't research it enough beforehand. But I would love to go back and actually hunt out some stamps and make that a bit more of an adventure. And then at some point I got a Japanese newspaper. I think this was complimentary at one of the hotels I stayed at, maybe the one in Ikebukuro. But this is from the 29th of May. And it's just really interesting to see the different layout of a Japanese newspaper compared to a British one. And it's kind of intimidating. There's some like sumo news and sporting stuff. So yeah, really cool. And I'll use that in my scrapbook of Japan. And then finally I have the Suka card. So when you travel by metro, you can get different passes, but for everything else, you can get a travel card like this. There's also Pasmo, and you can buy these from a machine and put money on them, and then you just tap this everywhere you go. But it's a nice souvenir to have from my trip. I could have talked a lot more about food. All I'll say about the food is that everything I ate in Japan was amazing. The worst thing I ate in Japan was I tried some little firefly squids on my last night, and they were still fine. They were tasty. And that was the worst thing. Everything else was amazing. Amazing ramen at Team Lab Planets. There's a little booth that only has one type of ramen, but it was insanely good, so good. And the biggest surprise for me was the bread. Japanese bread is so good. Even just the convenience store, little buns and things. Oh my God, I would get so fat eating bread every day in Japan. And the little onigiri triangle rice balls from the supermarkets you'd have for lunch, and oh my God, I just want to go to Japan and just eat non-stop for a week, I think. So I hope you found that interesting. I enjoyed going back over everything that I brought back and all the memories. As I said, these objects have memories for me, so they are important to me. And I will, now that I've recorded it, I can actually cut up that fabric and use it for its intended purpose. So yeah, thank you for joining me today. And if you haven't seen it already, I uploaded a video with different clips of my trip to Japan. It doesn't cover everything, but it is a nice sort of snapshot of what my trip was like and the atmosphere of different areas of Japan. There's no commentary, it's just natural sounds. Check that out if you're interested, and check out my channel, subscribe if you're interested about hearing about more of my travels and also all of my other hobbies. As I said about the sashiko sewing, maybe I'll do one like that someday. I have videos about my crafts, as I mentioned, my wedding crafts, and a lot of Lego videos. So yeah, check that out if you're interested, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks, bye.